Prince Harry was just caught on a doorbell camera knocking on random London doors while claiming he can't feel safe in the UK. The image is strange, haunting even Harry, stripped of titles, stripped of protection, wandering like a man without a place to call home. But behind that brief moment captured in pixelated video lies a far deeper truth, one that shakes the very narrative he and Meghan have built over the past few years. The man who once vowed never to return without guaranteed security is now pacing London pavements alone, exposed, and, ironically, completely unguarded. What changed? Why is he back? And what is he really trying to reclaim? Not long ago, Harry sat down in a BBC interview and made it painfully clear. He couldn't envision bringing his wife and children back to Britain because the environment was simply too dangerous. That declaration became one of many emotional beats in his ongoing saga against the royal institution. And yet, here he is, caught on camera, back in London, sneaking through backstreets, dodging media, and allegedly looking for a friend's house to hide out in. It's not just odd, it's revealing. Because when a prince goes door to door like a lost traveler in the very country he fled, it forces us to ask, is this a sign of desperation, rebellion, or a man wrestling with regret? This isn't just about a Ring camera image gone viral. It's about the unraveling of a story told for years. And it exposes something Prince Harry may not want the world to see. Because beneath the surface, beyond the headlines, and under the shadows of Buckingham Palace, lies a story of conflict, confusion, and a longing for something lost. To understand why this moment matters so much, let's rewind. When Prince Harry launched his battle against the British government over security, it wasn't just a legal dispute, it was a declaration. In his eyes, stepping away from royal duties shouldn't have stripped him of the armed protection that once shadowed his every move. But the Court of Appeal didn't see it that way. What began as a plea soon turned into a courtroom confrontation that exposed not only Harry's fears, but also the delicate web of royal entitlement, duty, and consequence. The legal journey began in 2020, when Harry and Meghan, after their dramatic exit from the royal family, found themselves navigating a new life without the security umbrella of the crown. And yet, when Harry returned to the UK for events like the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral or Queen Elizabeth's Jubilee, he expected the same level of protection he once had. The government, however, stood firm. If he was no longer a working royal, why should taxpayers fund elite-level protection? So Harry took the matter to court. He argued that the danger he faced was unique, that threats against his life, some publicly recorded, others allegedly gathered in intelligence briefings, meant that only armed British security could ensure his safety. In his words, without that protection, his life was at stake. And perhaps even more crucially, he insisted he could never bring his wife and children back to the UK without such assurances. But the court's decision was unequivocal. The panel ruled that Harry was not entitled to automatic security funded by the state. They emphasized that decisions regarding protection must be made on a case-by-case basis, managed by the Executive Committee for the Protection of Royalty and Public Figures. This wasn't just a personal blow, it was a public one. It told the world that Harry, once among the most protected men on earth, would now be treated like any private citizen during his UK visits. To make matters worse, this wasn't his first loss in court. Earlier attempts to challenge the committee's decision had also failed. The legal system was clear, stepping back had consequences. But for Harry, it seemed like more than that. It was rejection. And in that rejection, you could hear echoes of a man fighting not just for his safety, but for the last remnants of a role he once held with pride. The irony wasn't lost on the public when the BBC replayed his past interviews, where he claimed he could never imagine returning to the UK with his family due to security risks. Yet, just months later, there he was, captured on a grainy doorbell camera in the heart of London, alone, unguarded, and visibly exposed. The same man who argued his life would be at risk was now wandering the streets without the very protection he had fought so hard to secure. But here's what that legal loss really means. Without guaranteed protection, Harry's future in the UK remains uncertain. Every visit must now be carefully planned, privately arranged, and devoid of the security blanket that once defined his movements. It's a painful fall from the gilded comfort of royal privilege to the unpredictable reality of self-imposed exile. And it forces an uncomfortable question if Harry no longer belongs to the institution. Does he even belong here at all? This background sheds light on why that simple doorbell clip went viral. It started like something out of a tabloid prank, grainy doorbell footage, a late-hour knock, a confused glance from behind the glass. But this wasn't just any visitor. This was Prince Harry, unmistakable even under a hood and half-shadow, wandering along an ordinary London street as if he'd simply misplaced his royal reality. The clip spread like wildfire online, first shared by a local, then echoed by national outlets. But the intrigue wasn't in the footage's clarity, it was in its contradiction. Here was a man who insisted it wasn't safe for him to walk British soil without armed guards, yet he was caught pacing between doorsteps, with nothing but a phone in hand, hoping no one would recognize him. The moment, surreal and almost cinematic, broke the internet not because of what it showed, but because of what it suggested. According to local sources, Harry had been seen approaching at least 3 different homes along the same street. Each time, he looked uncertain, hesitant. Some residents even mistook him for a lost American tourist, asking for directions. But as one homeowner later told the press, "We were shocked to see it was him. He didn't seem to have a clue where he was going." The footage shows no entourage, no security, no royal formality, just a man, alone, retracing old streets like someone clinging to the scent of a fading past. Radar and insider sources quickly filled in the gaps. Harry, it seemed, had flown in under the radar for what was meant to be a discreet visit. He wasn't staying at any royal residence, nor was he making public appearances. Instead, he was reportedly trying to reconnect with an old friend, someone trusted, private, discreet, someone whose street wouldn't draw cameras or speculation. The idea was simple: blend in, go unnoticed, and escape the pageantry that once defined his every step. But in that effort to stay invisible, he exposed more than he realized. The reactions came fast. Headlines branded him everything from reckless to homesick. Commentators couldn't resist the irony. A man who sued the British government for lack of protection, now captured freely strolling a public lane. Some saw it as brave, a prince stripped bare of pomp, making peace with the ordinary. Others saw desperation, the markings of someone caught between 2 identities, neither fully royal nor truly free. And there's something haunting about that. Because when a former prince is mistaken for a drifter in the city he once called home, it doesn't just signal a fall from grace. It speaks of an inner unraveling, a quiet search for something that protocol and palaces never gave him. This wasn't just a return. It was a revelation. A camera caught more than a face. It caught a fracture. It caught the loneliness behind the lawsuit, the longing behind the rebellion. But that image alone begs the question, why was he really here? Prince Harry's latest appearance in London wasn't just unexpected, it was confusing. Because here stood a man who had spent the last several years insisting that the United Kingdom was too dangerous for him. A man who fought legal battles claiming his life and the safety of his family were at risk. And yet, the same man was now casually captured by a doorbell camera, wandering the streets of a London neighborhood without a single visible security guard. The contradiction was impossible to ignore, and it didn't take long for the internet, the media, and the public to pounce. It was a paradox that played out in real time across headlines and hashtags. On one side was Prince Harry, the vocal advocate for heightened protection, citing threats so severe they reportedly warranted bulletproof barriers. He told the world he couldn't safely bring his wife and children back to the UK. That statement formed the very backbone of his legal case, one he pushed even after repeated courtroom setbacks. But on the other side, the footage told a different story. No security team, no armored car, not even a shadow of a protective presence. Just Harry, on foot, quietly attempting to disappear into the very city he once feared. The contradictions didn't end there. In recent months, Harry has traveled extensively, appearing at star-studded events in the United States, including a major awards ceremony in Las Vegas, public engagements in New York, and media interviews with the BBC and other major outlets. At none of these events did he appear to be flanked by the kind of high-level, visible armed security he deemed essential in Britain. The question quickly became unavoidable. If he can walk freely through a city like Los Angeles or Las Vegas, why is London suddenly unsafe? Public opinion exploded in two directions. For some, this was the final straw. They saw the footage as proof that Harry's security claims were exaggerated, a legal maneuver more than a legitimate fear. Critics called it hypocrisy, arguing that Harry wanted taxpayer-funded perks without fulfilling the duties that once earned them. They labeled his behavior reckless, pointing out how his actions undermined the credibility of his case and made a mockery of the very system he had challenged. But others saw something more vulnerable beneath the surface. For them, the video didn't show arrogance or contradiction, it revealed homesickness. They saw a man disconnected from his roots, navigating a city that no longer welcomed him. To them, Harry wasn't staging a stunt, he was simply trying to reclaim a piece of the life he left behind, even if he had to do it alone. The image of him knocking on doors felt more tragic than bizarre, more desperate than entitled. It was the look of someone caught in a no-man's land between two lives, neither royal nor free. Social media lit up with debate. Hashtags like Chadrid Harry Exposed and Chummer Lost Prince trended alongside more sympathetic tags like Let Harry Heal and Chadrid Homesick Harry. TikTok creators made dueling videos, some mocking his awkward re-entry, others empathizing with his quiet breakdown. Comment sections became battlegrounds. Was he being reckless, or was he just human? The media framing only added fuel to the fire. Tabloids dubbed the scene bizarre, calling it a royal misstep worthy of satire. Meanwhile, more balanced outlets labeled it relatable, asking if Harry's journey was really that different from anyone searching for belonging after being cast out from their family. That's the strange truth about this story. It could be read as both outrageous and entirely human. So why risk this? Here's what lies beneath the headline. For all the lawsuits, interviews, and headlines, what we rarely hear is the silence, the space between the noise where Prince Harry's true struggle begins. Because behind the royal scandals and bitter courtrooms lies something far more human. Homesickness. A yearning so deep, it bends logic and makes a man knock on doorsteps in the very land he once swore he'd never return to. The footage may have gone viral, but the real story was written long before that doorbell ever rang. It's the story of a prince who walked away from a crown, only to find that walking away from home is much harder. Since stepping down from royal duties, Harry has created a life that looks picture-perfect on paper. A lavish estate in Montecito, a Netflix deal, a Spotify podcast, a beautiful family. Yet none of it seems to fill the void that echoes in his recent actions. Montecito offers luxury and anonymity, but it doesn't offer history. It doesn't offer Windsor. It doesn't offer London fog, Sandringham Christmases, or the quiet dignity of royal routine. What it offers is escape, but even escape has its price. Insiders close to the Sussexes have long hinted at this hidden ache. That while Meghan has found comfort and clarity in California, Harry remains split between two worlds. His present life may be full of freedom, but it's also full of distance. Distance from his brother, from his father, from the guards who once saluted him, from the people who watched him grow up only to now watch him from a distance through scandal, grief, and controversy. And, perhaps most painfully, distance from the only world his mother ever belonged to. Experts in royal history and trauma have drawn parallels between Harry and the emotional ghosts that haunt his bloodline. Abandonment, grief, public judgment. From Diana to Margaret to even Edward VIII, the institution has always bred isolation in those who dare to rebel. In Harry's case, it's rebellion fueled by love, but complicated by legacy. One royal biographer recently noted, Harry is not just running away from pain. He's chasing a memory that no longer exists, and that chase leads him back to the streets of London, not for headlines, but for a sliver of connection. That longing becomes especially raw when you contrast the birthday footage of Archie and Lilibet. Archie on his birthday looked strangely, alone in photos, no friends, no cousins, no chaos. Just a boy who should have had a room full of laughter, but was instead met with distance and quiet. Meanwhile, Lilibet's celebration appeared to sparkle, perhaps, because it was closer to Meghan's family, her comfort zone, her new roots. For Harry, the contrast is haunting, because his children are growing up in a world far removed from the castle walls that shaped him. And no matter how hard he tries to bridge the gap, the physical and emotional miles grow wider. And so, he tries, quietly. Through unannounced visits, covert trips, private phone calls. He wants to show his children where he came from, not just the buildings or the titles, but the spirit, the memories, the gravestones, the legacy. But how do you do that when your every step is scrutinized, when your motives are questioned, when you're locked out of your own past? This is not the behavior of a man craving attention. It's the action of someone who's lost something he can't name, something no amount of fame or freedom can replace. It's the walk of a son trying to honor his past without reopening old wounds. And when he knocks on those quiet London doors, it's not just to find a place to stay. It's to feel, if only for a moment, like he still belongs somewhere. But reconnecting isn't so simple when royal politics come into play. The ripple effect of Prince Harry's unexpected return didn't just unsettle public curiosity, it sent fresh tremors through the already fractured royal family. While the doorbell footage may have captured a quiet moment in a private mission, the consequences echoed through every corner of the monarchy. For King Charles and Prince William, the timing, the secrecy, and the optics couldn't have been worse. Once again, Harry had acted alone outside the institution, beyond protocol, and without warning. And every unannounced step he took on British soil seemed to widen the silent gulf between him and the two men who once stood beside him at palace gates and family funerals. King Charles, despite his outward restraint, could not have missed the implications. This was not just about a son returning home, it was about a former senior royal, challenging the very structure the monarch now leads. Harry's repeated legal campaigns had already forced the crown to face uncomfortable scrutiny over how it protects or doesn't protect its former members. By losing his case in court, Harry inadvertently chipped away at the old system, exposing just how much power had shifted and how rigidly that power was now being guarded. And while the ruling may have gone against him, it laid bare a truth the palace was hesitant to confront. The royal firm no longer bends for blood alone. For Prince William, the situation was even more personal. Their bond, once unshakable, has disintegrated into distant formality. Sources close to the palace revealed that Harry did not meet with William during this quiet return, and no such meeting was expected. The divide isn't just philosophical, it's emotional. William, loyal to the crown and prepared for kingship, sees Harry's unpredictable actions as a threat not just to tradition, but to unity. And yet, behind closed doors, even insiders admit there is a quiet sadness in the silence. Between the brothers, a gap that grows wider with every headline, every lawsuit, and now every shadowy visit caught on camera. Public reaction to this return was as divided as ever. Some saw Harry's determination as brave, a man fighting for safety, dignity, and fatherhood in a system that punished him for choosing independence. Others saw the visit as petty, even theatrical, a tantrum disguised as a homecoming. Tabloids wasted no time calling it out. If he's afraid, why show up unannounced? They asked. If he wants peace, why keep the cameras rolling? But beyond the loud headlines, many Britons quietly admitted they understood the ache. Because what Harry was really confronting wasn't just policy, it was legacy, memory, and rejection. And that, to many, felt deeply human. Royal commentators were quick to point out the institutional paradox. The crown is built on tradition, on control, on silent loyalty. But Harry is asking it to adapt to a new era, one where trauma is named, where emotion is public, and where no title should silence a personal truth. It's a war between centuries-old etiquette and modern expectations. And at the heart of that battle is a man who can no longer pretend to belong, but still can't fully walk away. Even as speculation swirled, Harry tried to shift the tone. After his court loss, he released a short but striking statement, thanking the judge for the hearing, and hinting at forgiveness and healing. It was a measured response. No bitterness, no blame. But from the palace, there was silence. Sakihan. Charles made no comment. William offered no public gesture. Behind the grandeur of royal walls, the message was loud and clear. The institution is moving forward, with or without him. So what's the grand design, if any, behind this unexpected visit? The timing, the silence, the viral image, none of it was accidental. Because while it may have looked like a lonely prince caught on a doorbell camera, the truth is far more calculated. Prince Harry's stealth visit wasn't just a spontaneous act of nostalgia, it was a piece in a larger, more complex narrative. A carefully measured step in a long-term strategy that blurs the line between privacy and performance, sympathy and scrutiny, vulnerability and influence. It's a move that stirred empathy in some and sparked suspicion in others, but either way, it succeeded in one thing: it got the world talking again. Harry's media strategy has always danced between contradiction and brilliance. One moment, he pleads for privacy. The next, he signs with global media giants. He condemns press intrusion, yet he invites cameras into his most intimate spaces. But this latest chapter feels different. This wasn't a documentary or a glossy interview. This was raw, unfiltered exposure. A prince, out of place, wandering unprotected. The very visual Harry has spent years trying to control was now leaking into the public sphere, not through a professional lens, but through a civilian's smart doorbell. And yet, was it really unplanned? Some believe Harry's unannounced appearance in London was a genuine act of emotional necessity. Others see a deeper play. In the era of controlled narratives and soft power politics, even vulnerability can be a tool. A public appearance without guards? A secret trip to reconnect with a discreet friend? These aren't just personal moves, they're symbolic. They speak to a man trying to recast himself, not as a rogue royal or a runaway son, but as a relatable figure. Someone who, despite fame and fortune, still searches for belonging, still feels the cold sting of exile, and still believes in redemption. In that way, the footage wasn't damaging. It was disarming. It forced the public to look past the lawsuits, the headlines, the palace whispers, and see the man underneath. A man who has lost more than he's gained. Who, despite his titles, walks alone. And that's where sympathy creeps in. Suddenly, the once reckless prince becomes the wounded one, the misunderstood one, and the timing couldn't be more impactful. Because just days after that image went viral, Harry stepped onto another stage, the Diana Awards in Las Vegas. There, he wasn't a man knocking on random doors. He was a global figure, delivering emotional speeches, raising funds, and recentering his brand on the legacy of his mother. The same mother who was hounded by cameras, mistrusted by the crown, and adored by millions. The parallel wasn't lost on anyone. This wasn't just about promoting a charity. It was about reminding the world where he came from, and where his loyalty truly lies. That same duality, public duty and private pain, is now defining Harry's every move. The challenge is no longer choosing between the UK and the US, or between monarchy and independence. The real challenge is navigating both realms at once, being visible without being exploited, being honest without being torn apart, and being strategic without being seen as manipulative. That's the hidden narrative of Harry's return, one not written in statements or scripted interviews, but captured in fleeting moments and whispered exchanges. He's not just reconnecting with friends, he's testing the waters, reaching into the past to find threads that can tie him to the future. And in doing so, he's redefining what it means to be royal in exile. Because every quiet visit, every unplanned appearance, every candid clip feeds into a broader campaign. A campaign not for a crown, but for control over his own story. At its heart, this isn't just about video, it's about power, identity, and legacy. Prince Harry's quiet return wasn't just a moment of vulnerability, it was a calculated risk, a contradiction in motion. The man who once warned that the UK wasn't safe for his family was now wandering London streets alone, caught not by the press, but by the people. That single doorbell snapshot peeled back the veil of strategy and secrecy, revealing something far deeper than just a lapse in security. It exposed the fragile space Harry now occupies, somewhere between royal and outsider, between self-preservation and longing for home. And in that space, every step he takes becomes a statement, whether he intends it or not. What we've seen is more than a prince knocking on doors. we've seen a man attempting to reclaim something intangible. His place, his peace, his past. This wasn't a royal engagement, nor was it a media spectacle. It was a quiet test of boundaries, of belonging. But in testing those waters, Harry also stirred a broader realization. The rules have changed. Not just for him, but for the monarchy itself. Titles no longer shield reputations. Royal blood no longer guarantees safety. And privacy, once sacred, is now a battleground where image and identity collide. With legal appeals still lingering, security policies in flux, and reconciliation with his family dangling by a thread, Harry's story remains unfinished. Will he return again, this time with his children by his side? Will the palace extend a hand or keep the gates closed? Will the public continue to see him as a lost prince, or as a man writing a new version of royalty, page by page, mistake by mistake? And then there are the whispers of more visits planned, of quiet meetings behind closed doors, of a possible pivot from California comfort back to British roots. Nothing is confirmed, but the signs are mounting. The narrative is still being shaped. And if there's one thing this visit proved, it's that Harry hasn't let go of the country that never truly let go of him. So next time you see an unguarded royal on camera, remember this story. It wasn't just a chance encounter, it was a signal, a reminder that even in silence, the most powerful statements can be made. Drop your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.